3-minute introductory statements.
First, I want to thank the Rotary for sponsoring this event. Hello, I am Ken Budge and would like to be your mayor. If you believe change is not a bad thing, then I'm asking for your vote. I am committed to more transparency, which has not been happening currently in our city government. I believe transparency in government is key to restoring our residents' faith in our elected leaders. My promise is to stop the current dismissive rhetoric and backroom deals. I will encourage you as citizens to once again come and speak to the council. I will not cut you off at 3 minutes and 1 second, as has been happening with Mayor Smith. The mayor and council are elected here to serve you, to hear your voice on matters that concern you. A little about myself. I am married to my wife, Mary Alice, for 42 years. She is a retired elementary school teacher. We purchased our home on Chihuahua Hill 25 years ago after I retired from a 27-year career as a firefighter paramedic, retiring as a captain. We have a wonderful daughter and son-in-law who live in Olympia, Washington. She works for the hospital as a board-certified pharmacist, and he owns a third-generation small family business. And we have 3 grandchildren. I was appointed, then elected twice, serving over 7 years as a Ward 1 council member. I have served on the Design and Review Board for many years, becoming chairman, and was their city liaison while I was on those 7 years on council. I served as chairman of the Police and Fire Advisory Committee, as a member of the Board Adjustments during that yellow trailer hearings. I have served as the Chamber of Commerce liaison when they were there, also an executive committee member of the Upper San Pedro Partnership for 7 years, and now I am chairman of the Civil Service Board. These years of service have given me the knowledge and experience to be your mayor. Bisbee faces an unknown financial future, but that doesn't mean we can't work for a bright and shared future in the city that feels alive and that we can have pride in the place that we call home. A community where, regardless of what is happening across the nation and the world, we take care of each other. A lot of important decisions are made on the dais, and I learned from my 7 years as a council member that there is no easy or sometimes perfect answers. Because of many of the issues are complex, I commit to being open to you and listening to your information, making the best decision that I can, learning from mistakes, and be willing to change course when things don't go as planned. Working towards a vision is going to take a lot of listening, learning, clarity, both on my part and everybody who is showing up to be part of this change. I will always believe the reason you all show up to council meetings is because we all love our city. Despite the challenges before us, there's also plenty of opportunity. I'm excited and hopefully to serve the city as your mayor. I'm looking forward to those 2 years. Our town wins by bringing people to the city instead of shutting them out. It's time to stop picking fights and pushing it apart. It's an honor to be a candidate for the mayor of Bisbee, and I'm grateful for the supporters that have encouraged me to run. Thank you.
Gentlemen, let's remove our masks, please. People are having a hard time.
Well, I've been traveling, and I don't think I want to remove my mask because it would be a really bad thing. I understand the mayor also got on an airplane to Utah, so.
It's certainly your choice.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to first, of course, thank the Rotary and Mr. Alton. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak directly to the people. And I'd first like to start by saying thank you for making me your mayor for the last 3.5 years. Those 3.5 years have been very interesting. We've had a lot of adversity in the city. We've had a fire in City Hall. We've had 4 city managers. We've gone through city attorneys. And through all of this, I have been there to lead us through with the fire situation. We were operational within 24 hours. And with the city managers, unfortunately, I inherited a city manager from a prior administration that wasn't who he said he was. And so he was dismissed, which is a very unfortunate situation and caused some problems internally with the city. And since then, we've moved several times, and we're now in a temporary location. I bring to the table a desire to continue to lead. I have some good ideas for taking us forward. I think that my leadership abilities and skills have certainly been shown throughout the last several months with this pandemic situation. My background quickly is that, as many know, I was a Tucson police detective. I was an arson homicide detective. And presently I own a business that investigates fires and explosions. And I travel throughout the United States, Mexico, and Canada, as well as lecture in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and other locations. I have a lovely wife. I have 2 children. I have 5 grandchildren. And now I have a great-grandchild. So life is good. So I want to be able to share my experiences with you and ask for your vote. I will mention one thing, that I do operate by the law. And the city code indicates that when a speaker is speaking at a city council meeting, they are to speak no longer than 3 minutes. That is, in fact, a statute that we follow. This is not a situation where we can make that determination. So I just wanted to clear that up, because I've heard that many, many times. Other mayors have used a discretion. In fact, we don't have a discretion. It is the law. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the questions. Since Ken went first for the introduction, Dave, you'll be up first. The first question is, what do you see is the biggest challenge facing Bisbee as a community, and you and the mayor as its leader?
Well, the biggest challenge that we're facing, of course, is getting through this COVID situation. It is quite honestly like herding cats on occasion. People are coming from outside. As mayor, I'm walking a tightrope, attempting to keep our businesses open and at the same time protect our citizens, which don't necessarily go together. Excuse me. And so it becomes somewhat difficult. We need to proceed. I have a plan. I have a 3-point plan on economic development that as soon as we are open back up, I want to be able as mayor to put into place. First part is I will continue meeting with Martha McSally, Kirsten Sinema, and Ann Kirkpatrick, as I have been in the past. And I'll be doing this in order to obtain lost revenue for this city. The revenue that we've lost through our depletion of taxes, because people are unable to come here, has been a tremendous situation. And so far, the federal government and the Senate has balked at attempting to allow people to recoup those funds. I will, with the help of both senators and the representative, continue to press that matter. Second, I want to kickstart the Arts and Culture District. I want to get them more active. I would like to start having a situation where once a month we close down the street and we have a walking group for 4 hours on a Saturday evening once a month. And that will bring a lot of people from Tucson and Phoenix. Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing Bisbee as a community and the mayor as its leader?
Well, of course, the pandemic that we're facing now is a huge hurdle. I've elected not to make that a political statement at all. I think, Mayor, I support a very hard position that he's taken, and for the most things, I don't want to be a Monday night quarterback and say, well, you should have done and whatever. I think that this pandemic should not be a political issue. So, second to that, of course, would be the money. It's the budget. It's the money. Money is what runs our city. And to be quite honest, we've had a failed 3.5 years, truly failed 3.5 years of managing the money. I just got the financial report with that came out. We just finished our financial year, and with 1 month to go, so the last one hasn't come out yet, we are currently, and this is how you judge a city, is based on revenue versus expenses. And right now, our city has spent $414,000 more than the revenue that it has brought in. Well, you're already so far in the hole that when we have the decrease from the pandemic and closing down the town, this is before that comes in. You've already depleted your reserves. We're already in big trouble before this even started. So to me, what you need to do is you need to manage the money and have those resources there so when these things happen, we'll be able to survive as a city. Now, I'll read exactly what our financial director wrote in her last report. Our general fund expenses are under budget at 84%, and our revenues are under at 73%. In other words, $414,429 more has been spent than revenue have come in, which decreases the general fund balance. That's a big problem.
Okay. Since you went first, you have a rebuttal.
There wasn't much said that's really worth rebutting. The situation is that taxes are always about 2.5 months behind. I have seen the last report, the end of the year report, and we are about 6% down. And that does include, of course, March and into April when the COVID hit us. So we do have a problem. We're going to have to obviously do something about that, and we have plans.
Okay. The second question. Bisbee's indebtedness is largely a factor of the PRS pension liabilities. How will you address this problem?
Well, I have several ideas. One thing I want to let everybody know, when I was a firefighter in Utah, I was assigned, actually promoted to be on the Utah State Retirement System, which right now is one of the premier systems in the whole United States. I sat as a board member on there for over 12 years. I was the chairman for 3. And so I'll give you some ideas. First thing is we need to do is we need to start paying down our debt. We can't just keep kicking the can down the road as has been happening and just pay minimum. It's like your credit card. If you only pay the minimum amount every single month, you'll never get out of it, and you're never going to be able, you're just going to get further and further behind. Now, if we do something that they've done up in northern Arizona, somebody that the mayor is very familiar with because he knows the past mayor up there, but Prescott actually took some money from a small tax increase and started paying down their unfunded liability, and they are in such better shape now in just a couple of years. We need to take a serious look at that and not worry about other things. Another thing I want to propose, and of course maybe our insurance salesmen don't like this, but what we did in Utah was for every fire insurance policy written in the state, we had a small amount of money that was charged to that insurance based on the amount of the insurance policy, and that went directly towards paying for retirement benefits. That produced millions of dollars every year that helped keep the taxes down. Now, I am still a union card member, and I can work with the union, I can work with the League of Cities and Towns, I can work with the legislatures. That's what I did up in Utah. I was a lobbyist up there on these kinds of issues. Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay. Bisbee's indebtedness is largely a factor of the PRS pension liabilities. How will you address this problem?
Well, thank you for the question. That is something that I've been very involved in on a statewide basis. I am one of 24 mayors that put together a task force and worked with the legislature, got an ad hoc committee in place to address just this. I'm opposed to many of the things that my opponent has indicated because they just flat don't work. As an example, he mentioned Prescott. Prescott put in a 1-cent sales tax and they found out that it's not doing what they thought it would. After the first year, it is not performing as they believed it would because the PSPRS funds are so underperforming that you can't pay enough money in to make up the difference. And that's exactly my point, is we shouldn't be paying any more than we absolutely have to, because this problem is not our problem. This is the state's problem. They created this problem, and they need to fix this problem. And I will continue working to do just that. I'm pretty well known as being outspoken on the PSPRS problem. One thing I would mention, it's kind of ironic because during the 7 years that my opponent was on the city council, our PSPRS debt went up 135%. So there could have been things that were done back then to curtail it rather than waiting now. So the fact is there'll be just no kicking the can down the road. This is something that's been faced, and this is something that the hard facts show us, that paying more money than we should actually have to pay has no effect whatsoever, except to take the money out of our pockets.
Do you have a rebuttal?
Well, of course. And I will challenge anybody to just go on, Google it, look at the articles that have come out of Prescott. They are thrilled with what's been happening up there. You realize every $1 million that we pay down, our rates drop 3 to 4%. Now, when I was in council, like he said, I proposed this as part of the 1 cent sales tax that we created. I said, let's start using some of it to pay down our PRS. He wouldn't allow it. He voted against it. That's the difference between he and I.
Okay, next question. Tourism plays a major role in the economy of Bisbee. How should the city leadership support that economic generator? What other kinds of employment generation could be attracted to our town, and how can that be accomplished?
The City Act absolutely does support tourism. And this is what's important. People need to understand, in my opinion, that Bisbee is not going to be the seat of major manufacturing. People are not going to come to Bisbee and open up large stores, or this is a mom and pop operation. And tourism is an important and integral factor within our system. We cater to the tourists. Instead of fighting it, we should embrace it, and we should make it bigger and better. And by doing that, I had a meeting with Tombstone, Benson, and Douglas just a couple days ago, Friday, as a matter of fact, in reference to just this, promoting the historical Highway 80, as Route 66 has been promoted previously, of promoting that, and the towns along the historic Highway 80. So there's a lot of things that can be done. Obviously, we're on hold right now because of the pandemic. There's not a lot of things that we can do now. And again, it's a very difficult situation with having our name out there and wanting our businesses to succeed, but not having people flood in and cause problems, as did over the Memorial Day weekend, quite frankly. We had some major problems in Bisbee, as we did elsewhere. And this is exactly why, when we look at these statistics in the state of Arizona, why the statistics have taken off, it's because of Memorial Day. So we need to continue to attract and to nurture, but we have to do it wisely. Thank you.
Okay, repeat the question.
Once more, please. It was a long one.
Yes. Tourism plays a major role in the economy of Bisbee. How should city leadership support that economic generator? What other kinds of employment generation could be attracted to our town, and how can that be accomplished?
So first, we need a little history, because I have an opponent that actually has, a record. And his record was when he ran way back when, and we had another debate at the Boys and Girls Club. He said we didn't need to raise taxes because I we can build our way out of this, and all we need is a bunch of smart people, and they produced what they called the Bisbee Committee. Now, nothing against, they worked their tails off, but as they know how hard it was. Then he came up with his 7-point economic plan that was going to bail us all out. This was 4 years ago. Here's his plan. That hasn't worked yet. So most of the promises that have come out of there are pie in the sky, to be the truth. So now, granted, we have to embrace tourism. That is one major part, but we have to not be. We need a total three-legged stool. We don't want to just sit on one leg. So we need more than tourism. So we need to start looking at more small business, things like a better laundromat, a dry cleaner for the Border Patrol people. I've been in negotiations with somebody in Sierra Vista to bring a used car lot, which would be great. It's clean. Every $5,000 car is a lot of groceries that would have come out of Safeway. Things like this. And then we need to move forward to realize this is a new age that we are entering into where most things will be happening on the internet. And we need to embrace and go out and find the money and start creating a citywide Wi-Fi. Do you realize 25% of our children don't even have high-speed internet? And they're supposed to go to school and learn from that during that? We need to fix that. We need to fix that. That will bring people here. It will bring revenue to us, and it will help us establish a full three-legged stool, not just a single-legged stool that's going to be knocked out from under us when something like this happens.
Do you have a rebuttal?
I do. Quickly, I would respectfully challenge my opponent's characterization that the 7-point plan hasn't worked. I don't believe he's checked figures. That plan has brought many thousands of dollars into the city that wouldn't have been here previously, having to do with charging for outside assistance, having to do with the sewer plan of having people pay ahead of time.
Okay. All right. The replacement of City Hall continues to be a question. What do you see as the solution, and what are the major issues that need to be addressed?
Well, first major issue is from that economic report, which I looked at, I should say, I went back and looked over all of the audit reports. They're available online for every year, and we have received $2.65 million in insurance money. We now have a little less than $2 million left. So somehow $650,000 has evaporated. So now we have $2 million. What can we do with that? Well, I would love to save Old City Hall. I would love to have it rebuilt inside. I worked there for 7 years. I attended meetings there for another 7 more than that. That's what I feel is our home. But we have to do it within budget. If that's not possible, there's a second option. The second option is to save the shell. Nobody's really looked into what that would cost. What would it cost to put some structural beams in there and leave it as an open air situation? We could use it for farmers market. We could use it for selling. For a lot of our artists downtown can't afford space, but maybe they can sell out there. We could bring commerce to Warren instead of pushing it away. Lastly, why build anew when we have buildings that can be repurposed? I've identified 3 separate buildings that we could repurpose for under the $2 million. One would be like on consignment. Another could be the Catholic old school up by St. Pete's. I'm sorry, that's my daughter's Catholic school, St. Pat's. So there is other options that we can look at instead of just building something else. And finally, of course, we can stay where we are, but I would like to see a city hall that's actually in the town side of Bisbee. That seems important to me, that we should have a city hall that actually is not in the county, that's just actually in city limits. That would be kind of special to me to think that we're inviting people to our home. It's the people's home. Thanks.
Would you like me to read the question?
No, I think I understand the question. I'd like to start off by indicating that every bit of money that came in has been put into and has been followed, tracked very carefully. Apparently, some people don't understand that we were paying $6,000 a month to be where we were. We purchased equipment. We had computers, desks, chairs, supplies, everything you could think of burned up in the fire. They had to be replaced. And so if you were to think about that, that's exactly where that insurance money went, was towards that replacement. The fact is there was $2 million that was paid on the building. That $2 million is still there, is still ready to be paid. Second, I would love to do something about City Hall. Every time it comes up, somebody has a different idea. We've had town halls on this. I plan on having another one and make it the last one, of people being able to indicate what they want to do. Because every time this comes up, there's minds that are changed, and there's a nostalgia that comes in about not wanting to leave a, quote, historic building that is not a historic building, never was a historic building, and never could be a historic building because of the renovations that were done on it. If I had my druthers, I would put a city hall in San Jose. We have parking. We have an area that is underutilized in the city of Bisbee. And so, that's my situation. To take a building, as my opponent just indicated, you ask him what would you do with City Hall, and he starts talking about taking the walls and making a garden out of it. That's not answering the question.
Well, I think I did, because actually you asked what would you want to do with it. And there's many options that are available. So I know my opponent has a one-track mind and says we're building and that's it. But the thing you have to remember is City Hall is our people's home, and we should build it so that the people want to come to it and be able to take care of city business in a convenient and good way. And when I'm mayor and I have to bring people here to ask for money, I don't want to do it over by the transfer station.
All right. The next question. Events across the United States have led to questions about policing. How would you address the call for change?
Well, of course, my background, having been a police officer, and I think being able to understand some of the pressures, albeit it was quite a while ago, pressures have changed, things have changed. I would address it that, first of all, in Bisbee, for the most part, we're doing a really good job. But I think that because we're low on manpower, we need to figure out a way to get a couple more officers and do community policing. We need officers out on foot, particularly in the downtown area where they can easily walk. I have positive comments coming back all the time after discussing with the chief about having officers on foot downtown. All these positive comments coming back about, an officer just poked his head into my store and said, "Hey, how you doing today?" and so forth. And people like that. The tourists really like that. I see our officers speaking with tourists all the time. And this is the kind of thing we need, that coupled with school resource officers. We need to get our SROR officers back, put them into the schools, let them develop a relationship with the children at a younger age so that they aren't afraid, so that they understand how to communicate, so they understand what the officer does. And so it's a two-way street. The officer learns from them, they learn from the officer. But that's really an important situation, is the officers being able to react directly with citizens and not putting up a wall that often we see, because typically we see that police officer in a car responding somewhere. And our guys are very, very busy. And so they don't have the time typically to get out and walk.
All right. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I think we'll skip that. I think I can handle this one. Thanks. One of the problems I see with our police officers when I was on council, it seemed like most of our officers were from here, they grew up here, they knew the players, they were long-term residents, and they had that rapport that he's talking about. They knew the kids from young. They coached them in baseball. They coached them in football. They knew that. And there was a lot less rhetoric and a lot less, animosity. But unfortunately, what we've become under the leadership we have now is basically a turnaround, which is they come in, spend a couple of years, we have to send the post, we spend the money, they pay it off in the 2 years, and then they move on. And because we can't give them what they want, mainly pay and other working conditions. So what we need to do is change the culture to where our police officers, much like many of the firefighters I knew, are here for life. And we're just not a revolving door. And the revolving door doesn't allow these officers to integrate and get together with the citizens. They don't know them by name. They just show up and immediately there's bad back and forth. Another thing I think we need is a much stronger review board. Now, I was I restarted the Police and Fire Advisory Committee when I first came in town. They asked me to, it kind of went away. It is actually a voted in directive, a committee that can't be dissolved. Anyway, I just saw somebody not hearing me. So I just think that we also need a much stronger review board to look at this and make sure that they know that they're being watched and there's somebody that the citizens can go to besides one single city manager. Thanks.
Okay, well, you might as well stand up because you get the first start on this next question.
Sure.
He denied. Okay. How can you as mayor enhance communication with the citizens of Bisbee? The current closures have made citizen participation in council meetings challenging at best. How can that be improved?
Well, right now we're in a very tough situation. They are live streaming. That's probably be the best they could do, but I would like to see, instead of just a call to public read something that actually gets discussed during the agenda. Now, when I become mayor, I'm going to change the overall agenda the way it's done. First off, the mayor, he gets his chance to say his thing, and then the councilmen, they're way down at the end and everybody's tired and gone home and they don't know what their council person has talked to. They're going to be also speaking right after call to the public. And then finally, we have all these beautiful boards and commissions, many of which we can't seem to fill right now. The mayor can't seem to keep them full. The problem is that none of us know what's going on. So there is a liaison from every council member or mayor, liaison for every single board and commission. I am going to demand that liaison gives a report after they've gone to that meeting, if it's a 3-month meeting or a 1-month meeting, and tell the rest of us what the heck went on. If we don't know what's going on, how are we going to respect this boards and commissions and their recommendations to us? We have to know what's happening. I know I've been on boards and commissions, but I never got a chance to tell the rest of the mayor and council what it is. So that's a way we can communicate, get the people involved, get them back into our more than 18 boards and commissions, and get them and listen to them. And then all council members and the mayor will hear what happened in their meeting. That will help form a good bond between them and also how they should vote if something in that type of committee comes up. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. How can you as mayor enhance communication with the citizens of Bisbee? The current closures have made citizen participation in council meetings challenging at best. How can that be improved?
Sure. Communications is certainly, that's it. The key is communications. I suppose that we could try to figure out a way to have town halls or something like this with live streaming. But we can see that just what we're doing here tonight, there's some difficulties with all of these things. But the city can certainly try to do that and try to answer more questions. I will tell you that from first thing in the morning until last thing at night, my phone rings, my email dings, and my text does whatever my text does, because people are constantly asking questions that I'm constantly answering. And so, better communications. I don't know with our present situation exactly how to accomplish that, other than what we're doing now. I will indicate a couple of things, though, that were just mentioned. If we look at the boards and commissions, there's more people serving on the boards and commissions right now than there was during my predecessor's years. And Mr. Budge, with all due respect, will not be coming in and rearranging the agenda that is, again, set by city code. The city code specifically indicates what is on the agenda and the time elements and the what goes first and what goes second. And so if he has an ordinance put through, that would be different. But he himself is not going to do that. So again, it's communications. As mayor, I will continue to do my very best to communicate, which I think we've been able to do certainly over the last 3.5 years.
Well, certainly I don't get to change the law just like that, like I've seen happening over the last 3 years in some situations. You bet I would bring this up because, the mayor is one vote. There's 6 other people. But I would highly suggest this change to our council. I mean, who would not want to vote for a better communication system? And I cannot believe that the council members that are staying and the new ones that are be coming on would not embrace that. So you bet. That's what I'll be doing.
All right. I think we are back to you. Animal control. Ordinances and enforcement are ongoing matters of concern for the community. What changes do you feel need to be made to current policy?
Well, we need to get up dead center and get it done. We put together a animal ordinance ad hoc committee, and again, because of the pandemic, it hasn't been meeting. But I was able to get volunteers from throughout the city, several different wards, because we needed to change our animal control laws. And we have some very, very passionate people about feral cats and about raccoons and skunks and any number of animals. And we need to get everybody on the same page so that we'll, in fact, be enforcing those together rather than apart. The animal control situation has been a big problem, and presently we're still working under the old system. The old system does not allow us to do certain things that we frankly need to do, having to do with animal hoarding as an example, having to do with the mistreatment of animals. The newer statutes which we're proposing takes care of all of that. And so once that the pandemic settles down and we can get the animal ad hoc committee, we call them, back together, then we can actually do something about this and get off dead center, because that's really what needs to be done. The citizens spoke, I listened to them, and that's why I put the committee together. They spoke and said, we want a say in the enforcement of our animal statutes. And so I honored that, and we're going to see it to the end.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
That's fine. I'm really sad about some animal situation right now, which is our animal shelter. They lost their funding as far as a contract goes. They did get a 1 month salary or 1 month payment, 1/12 of what was budgeted for. It's how do you run a shelter with 50 animals? That's what's there right now today on a month-to-month basis. It's almost impossible when all of a sudden your insurance payment comes and, you haven't been able to budget for it because it's one big lump sum. We need to sit down and talk to them. I've talked to the animal shelter people today. They have requested a meeting with the city manager to sit down, work something out, get at least 3 months, funding. I know we're in a little bit of a rough spot right now, a lot of it because they spent over $400,000 more than what has come in. Plus the last 2 years before that, from the actual finance director, in 2017-18, his first budget year, he came in $225,000 short. And in 18-19, he came in $273,000 short, spent more money than what revenue came in. So over these last 3 years, that's almost $1 million that has come out of our reserves. So I just think that it's better budgeting. It's to take the animals first. That's what counts. Take care of the animals. Don't worry about the money quite so much. I know we'll have to do a few twists and turns, but we need to negotiate. We need an animal shelter. Simple as that. We need to control. Laws are great, but most of the laws I've seen lately, most of them don't even get upheld, or they get upheld badly like we've seen.
I think one of us at least misunderstood the question. I will indicate that in rebuttal, the animal shelter has not been unfunded or disfunded, or however it's put. They've been asked to go month to month. Previously, they were on a 30-day clause anyway, where the city could terminate the contract within a 30-day notice. So nothing's really changed. They're just being provided, instead of being paid every 6 months, they're being paid monthly.
All right. So,
what number is this?
we are facing a continuing public health crisis in the nation and in our community. What will you do as mayor to address this issue?
Public health crisis, as in our pandemic? I'm a little bit confused on what your question, just public health in general? I was indicating the pandemic because that is the continuing crisis and will probably still be continuing after the election. So, right.
Excuse me.
I think one of the most important things is to do this. Wear your mask. Just because we're talking into a mic, I can talk through my mask into a mic. I mean, it is the law now. When you're inside, you're supposed to be masked, okay? I have not seen this man wear a mask at one city council meeting. All the other council members are masked, but the mayor does not wear one. To me, that won't be me. I can tell you that right now. As far as the pandemic goes, I don't have any easy or simple answers. We're taking as many steps, I think, that are appropriate this time, but we need to enforce, too. I'm glad to see after many weeks of well, I don't want to say kicking the can, but I want to say of mixed messages that have come out of this administration, that they're finally clamping down a bit. But I live above Old Bisbee. I get to see it all day long. I don't just drive through in 5 minutes. I see them walking the streets. I see it from my porch. I don't have to go downtown. I see it. And I see a lot of people that still aren't following the rules that we have set up. And it's the only way we're going to change this around is to start living the correct rules, which is mask up, social distancing, stay home when you can. I have a wife that I have to protect, and I'm serious about it. And I want to make sure that the rest of the citizens feel the same way about protecting my life and her life. I'm no spring chicken, I can tell you that. So anyway, thanks.
I think that my actions over the last 3+ months have demonstrated what I will do about this. I do take umbrage with a suggestion that I've been wishy-washy or kicking the can down the road. That's absolutely incorrect. I've taken decisive action any time that I've been allowed to. The governor curtailed all of the abilities of the mayors for a long period of time. I wrote a letter to the governor asking to be let loose, as did several other mayors, and the governor finally the next day let loose and allowed us to put mask ordinances into place, and that's why they're in place. Although some people should read them because it talks about shops, retail establishments, etc., or places where public will gather. This is not a place where public will gather. Each one of us is social distanced. A mask is an option. And I choose not to wear it while I'm speaking so that you can see what I'm saying. The same with our meetings. The fact is that we have challenges that are changing every day. We have a number of people that call me, I can't tell you how many times today, that they see somebody downtown without a mask. I've driven downtown. I've seen some people standing eating ice cream without a mask. I've seen some people walking down the street without a mask. People can walk down the street without a mask if they're social distancing or they're walking their dog and no one else is around. It's that simple. We've got to use our brain, and we've got to understand what the law says, and we've got to keep ourselves safe.
I'm going to pass the follow-up because I think we pretty well have seen most of this come out, and unfortunately what I would do is a mayor should make official proclamations and so on, not only on the city website, but also on the official city Facebook page, not on some community pages where it just gets tossed around and you get all kinds of back and forth and really nobody can come together. That's the difference. I don't want to use a community page. I want to use an official page.
Okay, next question. What do you envision for Bisbee's relationship with the border and communities in Mexico?
I'm sorry, what was the first part?
What do you envision
Okay.
for Bisbee's relationship with the border and communities in Mexico?
Yeah, well, I envision to continue. We have, under my administration, we have excellent relationships with Andrea Ramos, who is the mayor of Naco, Sonora, and Lalo, who is the mayor of Cananea. I have taken the city manager to both of those locations to meet people. I've had them here. Our relations have gone further, where I discussed with the fire department when we were able to get our new breathing apparatus, that we donated our old breathing apparatus to the city of Cananea and to the city of Naco, which provided them for the first time with fire department equipment that could be used and was salvageable. Working with the state of Sonora, we had a fiesta on at the wall, which was a major undertaking because Sonora, the state, kind of likes to do things at the last minute. So with five weeks to plan, they came to me and said, "This is what we want to do," but we got it done. On their side, they had thousands of people. On our side, we had maybe 100, but it was a lot of fun, and it was something that we hope to do again this year. Like I said, it was very, very successful. We have excellent relations. I talked to Andrea routinely, and we had a event at Camp Naco, and Andrea's mother made all the food and brought it across, which was wonderful. So we have good relations. We discuss tourism, and with the new Mexican General Consulate, we've discussed some programs that we're going to put together.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, that's fine. I'm starting to catch on, I think. So I don't have the history he does because I haven't been mayor, and so I don't get to go across the border and talk to all the other officials. I think that's great, but I sure will continue that same type of contact. There are sister cities, Cananea. Well, there's a lot of cross-border activity that benefits us both sides. The wellness committee, or wellness over there, the Gretchen and her painting over there. There's a lot of things that go on. Probably the most upsetting to me right now, of course, is what they're doing to the wall across the San Pedro. I was on the Upper San Pedro for over 7 years and spent with 23 agencies. We discussed, and we really wanted to keep that free-flowing river as an ability to do so. It's what they're doing over there and devastating things. It's going to be pretty tough, especially on large animals. So, I would like to see them do something else, but of course that's feds and we can't do it. So we just have to do what best we can as a small community. We're both small communities, pull together, great if we can share some resources with them as the fire department did, or, they can help us. I think we do have to be a little careful so we don't go into another situation like he did with Sonora Fest, where it actually cost the city over $65,000, and we really didn't get a lot of return out of that $65,000 that went to the Sonora Fest. All the tents up Main Street and everything else. So it was a good shot, but it just didn't work out. Poorly planned, poorly executed, and we do need to make sure that we watch our P's and Q's when we do things like that.
Okay, we are to our final question. And I think you are first. What do you see as your major agenda goals for the next 2 years as mayor of Bisbee?
Well, my major goal is to get us back into a budgetary situation where we're putting money in to our account, not taking money out. Now, they want to raise, or they're going to send to you voters a 1 cent sales tax increase. They're going to ask you for another 1 cent sales tax. They've already built that into the budget. $235,000 is in next year's budget, and you guys haven't even approved it yet. Well, who budgets for something you don't even know if it's coming? All right. They also put $120,000 out of reserves to balance the budget this year. They're saying they're going to make 800 and something thousand on ambulance transfers. They're not even barely going to make 600 this year. How are they going to make that much more next year? The budgeting process is just off the rails. They're just not being conservative enough and watching the P's and Q's. Now, Mr. Smith has said for many years, I inherited some bad situations when I came in. So I went back and actually reviewed all the budgets, and this are not made up numbers. This comes from the audit reports. So I went back as far as 2011 and 12 when I was still on council, and we actually, revenue versus expenses, $146,000 went in extra. 12 to 13, $157,000 went in. 13, 14, $307,000 more went in than expenses. Then came 2016. This is the year we made $1.4 million in ambulance transfers. $608,000 more dollars went in than came out. Okay? Then Mr. Smith came in office for the latter half of 2016-17 and broke even about $37,000. Then, as I said, 17-18 we lost, and then 18-19 we lost again $270,000. We've got to get the budget under control. That is the biggest thing that's facing us. We don't want to go broke.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you see as your major agenda goals for the next 2 years as the mayor of Bisbee?
Well, obviously, budgeting is a big issue. I can't disagree with my opponent about that. You can only spend what you have, and you can then you start looking at cutting services. which hasn't been mentioned, and what are essential services. This is up to the people. These are tough decisions. But to sit back and indicate that it's an administration that does this over a market, over a pandemic, over many other things is just flat wrong. I would indicate, I believe he indicated the ambulance revenue that he keeps talking about occasionally in 2014 was over $1 million. And interestingly enough, that when we take the salaries out to make that money, you see, inexperienced people, when they talk about budgeting, talk about how much something makes. They don't talk about the net. How much does it cost to make that? That's what we look at as the net. And in fact, the net, if we take our personnel costs, before we talk about ambulances, gas, depreciation, anything, in 2014, we lost $40,000 by operating the ambulances. And so these figures that are thrown out are half-truths, they're half-figures, and that's the importance of being able to actually know what a budget looks like, be able to read a budget, be able to know the difference between a balance sheet and an asset, as an example. Those are things that, being a private businessman, I know.
Well, I'm here to tell you that's the most made-up thing I've ever heard. If you look at the auditor's reports for 2011 through 2014, it was all between $900,000, $800,000, $900,000 in ambulance revenue. 2015-16, when we did make $1.4 million, we put $600,000 in the bank. We didn't lose $40,000. We put $600,000 additional into our reserves. Okay, when he came in, ambulance went down to $800,000 in 2017, and now we're not even going to make $500,000 this year. That's why we're in the hole. Simple.
Okay, we have time for a 2-minute final statement from each candidate. So I think you were who was my first? You started? So, final statement. 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, again, I want to thank everybody, and everybody that's watching. Thank you for taking the opportunity to care about your city and care about the election and care about who you vote for. Voting starts on Thursday, early voting. So please, whichever candidate you want to vote for, please do vote. Your vote does make a difference. I'm a proven commodity. I've been here for 3.5 years. You know exactly what you're going to get for the next 2 years. You're going to get somebody that, no nonsense, business, get things done, not kick the can down the road, and face the obstacles and make, hopefully, lemonade out of lemons. Thanks so much.
I also, of course, want to encourage you to vote. Talk to Lisa Mara today. If you do not feel like voting by mail, which she'll guarantee is absolutely safe, you can go down to the county and vote early so you don't have to show up at the polls. Those will be open until the 31st. So she's encouraging us all to vote in the best way we can and the safest we can. So let's just make sure where we are here. Because of the situation, a lot of people don't realize you're going to get a new sanitation bill with a $6.77 recycling fee on it. But they're not recycling anymore. When we pass the 1 cent sales tax for streets, that produces $700,000. Well, guess what they're doing with some of that? Well, with $700,000, they're taking $190,000 of it and transferring it into the general fund because they need to, support that fund. I'm sorry, we voted as public to put that in asphalt, to fix roads, walls, but they're taking $200,000 into GF funding next year out of our tax money that's was voted on by the people. This is crazy stuff. I mean, there's no use of that. And I guess the bottom line for me is, when I say rhetoric, this is one thing that bothered me more than anything. When he pulled a records request on a fellow council person, Leslie Johns, and requested all of her emails, texts, and so on in 2/6 of 19. Who does that to a fellow council person? You know, you have to work with these people. If I want to know something, I'll just go ask them. I'm not going to do a records request. That's just poor manners, and I'll guarantee you I'll be much better mannered than what you've been getting. Thank you.
Yeah, how are you doing? I'm Scott Beercher, the Bisbee Rotary President this year. I would just like to thank you for tuning in to the Bisbee Mayoral debate, sponsored by Bisbee Rotary and produced by Chuck Alton. In Bisbee, we operate by service before self and the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better relationships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So again, I thank you for tuning in tonight, and hopefully this helped clear up some questions you might have. And I'd also like to thank the moderator, Becky Orozco, the timer, Cochi Orozco, and Sherry Morgan running the Facebook. And I think I've got everything.
Give a little cheer.
Thank you.
Thank you both.